like 5, I'm sure. That's how it went back in the day.
Oh
Here we
my
go. Here's the
gosh.
chorus. You your love lifted me up. Now I'm looking.
You're recording, yes?
Never thought I'd ever see that far. You are in my soul wherever I go. Now
was
I
Five
know
Above.
right from the start your love was written on my heart.
Well, with all that, welcome to our Young Adult Podcast, Adultish. Well, hey, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us. Welcome to our Young Adult Podcast, Adultish. If this is your first time, my name is Gabriel. I have the privilege to serve as a young adult ministry pastor here at Christ Fellowship. And we have an incredible conversation with really 2 of my sisters, one blood, one in Jesus. Hey-o.
Yep.
And it's going to be a great time. And so I would love for them to introduce themselves real quick.
Well, my name is Dee Dee Hernandez. I am a wife, a mom, and now a teacher.
Hey.
And I have served in young adults and serve in a worship ministry as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said Hernandez.
Yes, I
Did you change your
Hernandez
name?
Orellana. Yes, I officially changed my name, so now I'm Hernandez Orellana.
Andy,
Oh,
show,
oh.
we'll cash up you
I
later.
did it.
Well, now I feel convicted.
It'll come in time. It's a
My
lot of work.
name is Jess, and I'm the Next Gen Experience Director here at Christ Fellowship. I get to work with this crazy guy, and yes, I'm married, and no, I have not changed my last name. Because ask any married woman and they will tell you that it's a very tedious process that I just haven't gotten around to. And believe it or not, Tito does not pressure me to change my last name.
It took me almost 3 years.
Oh, dear.
It
Lord.
just-
So there you go. I've already got
it's
1 year in my
everything.
belt.
It's everything. It's social. It's driver's license. It's passport. It's bank. It's everything. It's crazy.
Ugh.
What a great segue to talk about relationships. Well, you know, we had a podcast last month on relationships, and it was great. Pastor Pastor Carlos and Shawnee.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not going to edit that out, but still. What's their name? Pastor Carlos and Shawnee.
Yes.
They were here, or whatever your theology is, fine. No, I'm just kidding. But they were here, and we had a truly a great conversation on relationships. And we just navigated through this series also in young adults, speaking about relationships, about friendships, singleness, dating, family, marriage, and it was so powerful. And you know, there's just still more questions that young adults had, and we feel like we needed a part 2 to speaking about relationships. And so thank you for joining us. Dee Dee is actually, if you guys didn't know, we're actually related. Yes, she is my sister.
Yes.
She got
Yes,
all the
we
good
are.
looks in the family. God bless, that's fine. And Jess is my sister from another mister.
Oh, boy.
And we get to serve alongside,
Yep.
and it's a great time. But let's warm up the engines before we get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about different kinds of relationships again and just answering some of the questions that young adults had. But I want to know, because I don't know really the details of either of y'all's stories.
I'm surprised.
I
you
know.
I don't. Surprisingly, I don't. But I want to know, how did your spouse, how did Andy, how did Tito ask you out? Not even to marry you, but ask you out on a date. Like, go.
Do you remember?
It's like, I'm like, man, the wedding one is a lot clearer, but the asking out, it kind of happened. It wasn't like this direct, it's so weird. We met through friends or whatever, but we met officially because we were both serving in the first ever Zeal.
Come on now.
And he had scheduled me to sing, and we went to rehearsal, whatever, and we just connected on similarities. And I remember after that first practice, he was like, "Hey, call me on your way home." And I was like, okay. I thought we were going to talk about the set, and it was more, we were just talking about life, navigating life after divorce and all these things. And so it was just like, okay, we quickly gravitated toward each other because we had a lot of things in common.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was like several hour conversation the first night. And then the second night, it was many, many more hours, like 5 hours and then 7 hours. And then,
golly.
Yeah. And then that was on a Monday or Tuesday that we rehearsed. And then on a Friday, it was a 10, 12 hour conversation. And it was like till sunup. And that just grew into
I feel so tired by just listening to that.
I know. I
Why
mean,
am I suddenly
it was
sleepy?
it was like a whirlwind type of thing, and then it just kind of moved into we were talking all the time, and then I had rehearsal over here, I think in West Kendall. Then he's like, "Hey, let's go hang out after." So that just became. It wasn't like a "Hey, I want to
Andy.
go out on a date with you" type thing. It was just like, "Let's go hang out." We've already been talking so much, and it just was, let's go spend physical, like face-to-face time together.
Careful.
Yeah, I know, careful.
The audience.
No, we were actually really good about that. But yeah, it was very organic.
Yeah.
And that developed into, I freaked out and I was like, wait, we're moving too fast. And then I kind of cut things off. And then it was Easter recording. And I saw him again after I had been like, hey, like, let's want to be friends. And when I saw him, I was actually just telling my mom about this yesterday. When I saw him, I was like, oh man, I think I made a mistake. And then we just started talking again. And yeah, it was just.
You have a little twinkle in your eye right now.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time.
That's cute. I love it. I didn't know that.
It was a
So
good
that's
time.
cool.
It
Well,
was a
now
good
I
time.
don't like him even more. So, no, I'm just kidding.
You love him.
I love that guy. He's awesome.
Well,
Miss Jess,
mine-
I want to know.
My-
I want to know.
Mine
Don't
is-
leave juicy details
Oh
out.
my god. So Tito and I, when we first met, so I'm in worship, I'm a musician. Tito's in production. He's a production director. At the time, he was just like an intern and whatnot. We got introduced. I'm a hugger. He's not. So you know that he got a hug that he didn't want, but you know, look at us now.
But he actually did want that hug.
Or did he? Over time, we went to the same small group and whatnot. We were just talking more, and after small group, we would go over to somebody's house for small group, and afterwards, we'd always stay like talking by our cars, and then it evolved into after small group talking by our cars. We got tired of standing, so then we would go to the Starbucks across the street. Stay there until closing and still be talking.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why like your
yeah.
conversation, I'm like, man, our story is kind of similar. But how he ended up asking me out was even funnier because we had this really silly thing going on at downtown at the campus we were at, where we it was kind of like this forbidden love kind of thing, where it's like I had all these feelings for Tito, but he would never reciprocate.
Oh.
And so I'd be like, Tito, all the time, why don't you hold my hand? Why don't you show people, why don't you show your love and affections and whatever? And he'd be like, "Bleh," and whatever. Well, anyway, all the while that we would be, talking and whatnot. So then one day, it was after a rehearsal. I'm driving home. He texts me a link to a video, he sends me a YouTube link. He's like, go to this, timestamp and whatever. So I go to it. It's for those of you who do you know the show New Girl?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I
so
love that show.
there's a part in one of the early episodes, where Nick is in the park with this Asian guy, and he's practicing how to ask the main character Jess how to go out on a date with him.
Tito's so smart.
He's
Tito's smart.
like a game, dude. Or wait, what do they call it? Riz.
He's got Riz.
No.
Sorry, generation.
It's like,
No.
These kids today.
Bro, he's got game.
Yeah,
dude.
so he sends me that clip, just that clip, whatever. It's like, Jess, I really like you. I think you're an amazing woman, and I just would want, along those lines, would love if you would go out with me. And I saw that, and I'm like, yes. I text him, I'm like, haha, that's so funny. That's really good. That was it. Poor guy. And quite frankly, it really was a really good ass. That was the most creative thing.
Dude, that is awesome.
But I thought it was a joke.
Well, I mean, you guys had been joking.
We've been joking about it. Thank you. Someone understands my
No.
side. So
Okay.
I'm like, haha, so funny. That's a real good one.
And there is clarification.
And then he's like, yeah, I cried. He's like, he was so like bummed out. He's like, okay, wait. After he got over it, he's like, I need to be a bit more direct. So I think maybe a few days later, he asked me more directly, like, hey, you want to go out?
Gosh.
And then after that, we had a 2-hour business meeting about the pros and cons of dating.
That's smart.
Wow.
Yeah,
Let
we
me
got to
tell-
talk about that.
Well, we
Yeah.
could talk about that, but yeah, like literally, we took the long way home. It was dinner and a movie. Dinner was Wendy's.
Come on now.
And
Some
Sounds like a ministry
movie
budget.
Frosty
was
action.
the movie was Bohemian Rhapsody because
Oh.
I'm a big like classic rock fan, love Queen. And then we took the long way home and talking about, by the end of it, 2 hours later, sitting in my car in my driveway, so do we want to do this? I guess we're going to do this. And I was,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Man, I learned from both of y'all's stories and something you just said now too. What was pros and cons? I think that one of the things in relationships that young adults, I don't know why they struggle, but they struggle in having like clarity
Mhm.
in their intentions and conversations. Like they don't have clarity and like even in the pursuit of a conversation, they don't have clarity and really any of it. And so why do you think that young adults struggle in having like those kinds of conversations? Like I know we're saying pros and cons or just to be like clear with their intentions. Why do you feel like this generation for some reason just doesn't want to, like Andy got straight to the point. You guys got into it, direct. And then you guys, were friends for a while and there was a season, but then it came to a point like, all right, well, if we're going to take this to this next level, like let's put all our cards on the table and then see where we're at. Why do you feel like this generation struggles with that?
There's two things that I've seen from this generation. I've seen both sides of the pendulum where I've seen them where they're super eager to like drop everything on the first date, where it's just like kind of overwhelming. And then I got the other side where, quite frankly, they appear just very passive. Where it's just like, hey, yeah, we're going to do all the flirtation and all the things
all
that
the
make us like
games
as if we're in a relationship, but, and not establishing boundaries, already out the gate, breaching boundaries. And, but we're not going to like talk about, what is this, Yeah.
I think it's fear too. It's fear and insecurity. Because remember, it depends also what age bracket, it depends also what age bracket in the young adult spectrum you're in.
Sure.
The younger ones tend to be more insecure but have less fear. And then the older ones, they've already been burned. So they have those past mistakes and then they become fearful, more cautious.
More cautious,
because they don't want to waste time. I don't know. What age did you guys get together?
Oh my goodness. Well, here's where I say there's a bit of an age gap.
Yeah, but were you past 25?
I was in early 30s. So I think I was 31. He was 23.
Yeah. As for us as well, we were early 30s, like earlier 30s. And so we had already lived. And I think the difference is that we were just tired of just all the other nonsense.
Yeah.
And so when you want to get straight to the point and and understand who you are first in Christ and then who you are, like I knew who I was as a woman at that age. I knew who I was as a mom at that age. Like I had already established who I was. And so I knew what I was looking for. Now, something that I realized when I was, 30 plus was that what I thought I wanted on paper was not realistic in my daily life. Personality, like my husband's personality was something like he is God's gift to my life because I thought I needed somebody super like strong and like because I'm like I'm very strong. I need somebody. But my husband is strong, but he's patient and he's kind and he is the opposite of all the things that I am. I'm not saying I'm not kind, but I'm just very tough sometimes.
I mean, I know you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Gabe, like, is she kind?
She's kind.
I am kind. I'm just firm.
Don't mess her mad.
I'm
don't make her mad.
I'm just firm, and he has so much more grace. He's taught me grace. And I didn't realize that I needed that side, like somebody like that in my life, with that kind of kindness to come up and just be like, hey, you need to be nicer.
No, that was the same with me and Tito because it was in essence the same thing. Was that I had the history, the years, the bad relationships. And so I'd kind of come into my own and, not to say I wasn't insecure. I think we all kind of have our insecurities and some different things. But I think it definitely like played a factor because the fun fact is that I'm Tito's only relationship.
Yeah.
He's never been with anybody else. And for that reason, like I was just very conscious of that, when it came to like my own personal history versus his.
Yeah.
And trying to preserve that. But I think definitely, a sort of confidence and kind of like knowing, I think allowing yourself the grace and the space to kind of grow and mature. So you get to this place where when you finally arrive to a relationship, you're not looking for another person to complete you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
100%.
You're not chasing this, this thing that you're like, this is the missing piece to my life.
Nah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're not your missing piece.
No.
Nobody's going to complete you. The only person who does that is Jesus.
That's
Yes.
right.
But, coming into it, like, looking back, there was a part of me as somebody who, I didn't get married until my 30s. And I actually didn't start dating the person who would become my husband until I was 31.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that's all my entire young adulthood life,
Yeah.
Predominantly single.
Yeah.
And, naturally that can harbor a lot of like, insecurity and things like that. But looking back, I sincerely do not regret those years or resent them at all because it
No.
provided me that space
That's right.
to grow and mature. And eventually I got to a point where I was really like, content in my singleness. And then
Yeah.
God said, here's Tito.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think something that both of you ladies mentioned that's so important. Didi, you said it, and just too. You mentioned and you referred to identity, like when to date. Like first, you got to figure out yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Your identity is in Christ. It's not that this person, guy or girl, is going to complete me. It's gonna add something to me. Right. So I guess the question that I would ask is, when do you feel like a young adult should know, like what is the thing that a young adult is doing in their life, or what is the way that a young adult should be thinking in their life to know, I'm ready to take that step to now start dating someone? Like for a guy, I can share for a guy, or you guys want to share for girls?
I can share for a guy, it's harder for me to be able to identify that.
Sure.
I do just kind of know in conversation because as a woman,
Yeah.
But I have seen, and I don't know if it's like any special thing, but I have seen, like, I've walked with a lot of young women, and I can tell where the switch is because I've walked with them when they were younger and were making foolish mistakes. And not that we don't make foolish mistakes later on, but then I see when there's been a turnaround, and usually it happens after a really bad time.
Yeah.
And then they come out of it and either they fall away into the world and it's like, okay, they'll resurface. And I've seen this again. They resurface after a few years or like a year of just being in the world, just sucked in. And then they're like, okay, I'm done. But the ones that went through those hard times and have stuck with the Lord, like they come out of it just so much more identified with Christ because they stuck with him. And then you see the change in their life. Now they are not just desperate for a relationship or validation from men. They're serving. That's one of the things.
Yes.
Like I always told the Lord, if I were to ever, be in a relationship and get married and all these things, I'm like, I want him to find me serving, which is the same place I want to find him.
Yeah.
So something I tell the
That's
girls all the
beautiful.
time, I'm like, before they met their significant others, be in the place where you want to find him or where you want him to find you. Like, find a man serving, but you got to be serving so you can find him serving.
Yeah, right.
And so I find that they are serving. I find that they are more committed to their time with Christ. I find that they are like even their face changes, like the way they dress, the way that they post on social media, everything changes. And so you can see that switch once they've come out of a really tough time. Yeah. A hard season.
Yeah. I want to hear the guy's perspective.
Yeah,
though.
that's interesting.
I would say, like, for our young guys and our young adults, like, well, I was an idiot, so I was dumb.
Can second that.
No,
Second that.
not at all.
I needed to mature a lot, and I think the problem with a lot of young adults, a lot of the dudes out there, is that they have a lot of maturing to do. There's real problems that we go through as men, whether it's identity, whether it's there's a lot of like anxiety and depression in a lot of young men. But I think that the men, we hear it all the time, but before we can enter a relationship or should enter a relationship, we need to make sure that we're leading ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not a dude of discipline that can get up and spend time with Jesus, and serve Jesus and live for Jesus, then you're going to be leading a woman away from Jesus, right? And so I think that the right time for a guy to say, okay, you're never ready to date, you're never ready to get married, you're never really
we always have
ready
things we need to work
do
on.
anything.
Yeah.
But can I tell you, like, a lot of these ladies that I talk to, or that they come talk to me after a message, like, Pastor Gabe, can I talk to you?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I like this guy, but he goes to church, or he's Catholic, or I'm like,
No.
listen,
Oh no.
if
know.
if we're already starting there and you already have to prove to me
Yes.
kind of like
Uh-huh.
why he's okay, I'm like, dude, you're on the
No.
so for the
Yeah.
dudes, what I would say is like, man, for you to be the right guy, or that you're ready to date, like lead yourself.
Mhm.
Lead yourself so that you can understand and be confident in who the Lord has made you. Don't enter a relationship because you feel that that relationship is going to heal your porn addiction.
Yeah.
Don't get
Mhm.
into a relationship because you feel like, oh, now that I have a girl, my lust is going to go. No,
Nope.
it actually
No.
intensifies, you
Yeah.
know? And so, like, we're never fully ready. We're never going to be like right where we need to be, but there is steps that we can take. And one of the things I was telling, we were talking downstairs with some of the young adult girls there with Jess and people and Angelia and Jonah, but we were sharing with them, you know, I also like, I really believe that in this day and age too, what the church needs and what, you know, like women should be looking for is a young man that is not fearful to worship Jesus publicly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That if they're a young man, I'll tell you, if you are afraid to worship Jesus publicly because you're not cool, you think that the girl doesn't think you're cool or attractive, can I tell you, then you're not ready to date. If you can't worship Jesus publicly, you can't date a woman privately. You know, like it's not a thing.
And for the women too, like when
Yeah.
you're looking at that, you have to think of, is that the man that you want your daughters and your sons looking at when
Mhm.
they're worshiping? Because like what Pastor Al said this last weekend, your kids are watching you.
That's
like your
right.
kids are watching everything that you do, the way that you worship, how you pray, when you pray, if you pray, all those things. And so it's like you have to think of for the future. You right now you don't have kids, but you got to think of when I have my little girl, I have my little boy, whatever. Is that the man that I
Right.
want modeling all these behaviors,
Yeah.
spiritual, physical, emotional behaviors? That's the type of man you have to think ahead of time.
And if you're dragging that person to
Mm,
church
nah.
right now, it's just so much worse when you're married. Like, oh no, when we get married, it's just, that's like wishful thinking and really that's being unequally yoked.
Yeah.
And can I tell you how like attractive that is? Like, okay, so I
Yes.
play guitar and bass and whatever
And everything.
for worship and everything. For worship. I also am the music director, so at the same campus that my husband is the production director for. So when I'm on stage and I can see clear across the room during worship, my husband on the board
I
worshiping.
love that.
Yes.
It's just so encouraging to
Yes.
me, and it's super attractive, but like it really does like inspire me, and it makes me just so grateful, one, to praise God for, like, again, he's an answer to prayer, but two, that, you know, that he's leading me in that moment.
Yeah.
When I see him across the room also worshiping.
Yeah.
He's serving, he's working, and he's worshiping.
Yeah.
But also too, like for the ladies as well, we have to be there too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you feel proud of that, and that's attractive to you because that's where your heart is.
Exactly.
You know, I think of somebody that I know. I'm like, he's been single for many, many years. He's 40 pico, like 40 more.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's looking for this woman who is a Christian, and because he wants his kids to be Christian, but there's nothing about him that is
emulates
really,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that emulates that. So I'm like, you're looking for something that you are not.
Yeah.
And so
Snap.
you cannot expect to find someone or
Attract someone.
Yeah, you're cutting the legs off of somebody if you're not the person for them. Like, you're looking for this godly person, but you are nowhere near that.
Yep.
Like, what are you going to be to this person? You're going to bring them down.
Yeah.
And so you find that attractive because that's where your heart is. I
Yeah.
mean, I see my husband too. Like, of course, everybody's seen Andy like playing and like
You-
this,
you-
like
you
standing
know-
at the piano.
You
Like,
know, when he's like,
that's-
he's off the stool,
he's
he's
feeling it.
standing with both hands up. I'm like, bro, you're
Yes.
not playing. But
He'll-
He's got
he'll
the
just
sustain,
say
the sustain pedal
and then,
as well.
you know, it's one of those things that for me as his wife, I'm a worship leader too. It's like, I love that. And I see my daughter.
Okay, fine. I'm a worship leader too.
I do not sing.
No, I do
No,
not.
it's important though. It's important because then I also see my daughter watching us, you know, as a married couple,
That's right.
and then Mateo as he's growing up, and you know, your kids when they're gonna grow up. That's what we want.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
want? What do you want as a young woman, as a young man? What is it that you want? Are you the person that you are looking for?
That's good.
You need to
Yeah.
be.
I
You
got a
need to get
question.
there.
I
Yeah.
got a question.
Tell me.
So we're talking about thing, like being ready to, I guess like preparing yourself for the person that you would hope to eventually become your husband or wife. My question is, are there things that we are allowing, me speaking as like a young adult, things that they are allowing to kind of hold them back as like sort of excuses not to like, basically take that, like say, I guess I'm talking more about like the person who's in the relationship who's not taking that next step to, like you've been
commit.
dating for like 10 years.
Oh, so what you're asking is like,
and so they're making like excuses for
nonsense.
like how long
how long
do we date before
exactly.
like should we be, like before like okay, but we need to make the next step
because
here.
I've heard some excuses that are used and I'm like, yo, that's
I'll share really quick because the Lord has smacked me pretty hard in this area. I used to be very almost like black and white legalistic. I'm like, hey, I still think it's a great formula and it's a formula for success. I think, but your situation was different, right?
Yeah.
I think
And
friendship
mine was
is key.
too.
Yeah.
Friendship is key though.
I think
Yes.
friendship is key. Like if you guys if you don't even like each other before, once the romance and all that done, I'm like, do you even like hanging around each other? You know what I'm saying?
You got a
Like, do
long
you
way
even
to
like
go.
who that person is?
Yeah.
Lauren and I, like, it's funny. We make each other pee. We laugh so hard. It's like, but we're good friends. And honestly, like there are times where I've seen spouses like where they can't even stand each other. It's like, bro, wow, they're always fighting and bickering. And so what I would say is friendship is key.
Yeah.
Starting with this good, strong foundation. And how do you start that? Well, dude, that's why I love young adults. It's not the reason why we have young adults, just clarifying out there. We don't have young adults because it's a great dating ground. Now, that being said, it is. It's
Yes.
a great place because going back to what they were saying, do you want to go find your spouse in a club or do you want to go find them like, at a brunch where they're getting slammed, like, no, like what a great place to find them serving the Lord and worshiping the Lord. So I think that friendship is a great place. See how they interact with other men.
Yes.
Are they respectful? Are they always like, touchy? I'm like, I don't want a chick like that, to be honest, in my life. And then the same way with the guys, are they super flirty with all the girls? And then hang out, be friends. And then I think that here's where a lot of people mess up the dating process. Be clear. Be like, hey, like with Lauren, it's, it could have been back in the day, we'd be like, hey, I love that we're friends, but I would love to get to know you a little bit better. Like, you want to go grab some coffee? You want to go grab some lunch? There's nothing wrong with that. Go and grab some lunch, coffee, whatever. If you like what you saw and what you experienced, then be clear. I'm like, hey, I really liked our time together. I would like to do it again. Is that cool with you? If you don't be obligated to continue, because then people feel comfortable, but that yet they enter a relationship, and then before you know it, they've been dating for years, going back to what you're saying, and now they're just together because they're together, and then they don't come, and then they're like, now everybody's getting married, so like I guess next thing for us is marriage, but they're entering the marriage in a wrong way. And so I would say friends, date, have clarity whether it's to continue or to exit,
right?
And then I would say, once you're dating and you're in a relationship, I was gonna say like, man, and in a year, if you're not, well, number one, let me back up. If you're not ready to get married in a year, you shouldn't be dating.
Correct. I agree with that.
You shouldn't even be like, if you're not ready to make that commitment. And I would say, what does that mean? Financially, mature, emotionally. If you're not ready to make that commitment in a year, don't even date.
Yeah.
Don't even look. Let the Lord continue to mold you and prepare you and become the person that God is calling you to be, first for him and then second for whatever he has for you. And then I would say like a good short season. And then if like you don't know, it's all right to be like, hey, I just don't see a future. And this is where so many people go wrong.
Yeah. I think going back to the friendship thing, like I would always tell my girls, sometimes we are at young adults or we're at church or we're in places and all we have on is the fishing lens. Like we're just fishing for a guy, like, or like we're just always on the lookout. And again, it's just like I've seen those girls that have gone from changing that lens until the Lord has done something and then it's different. And I would tell them always, I would tell them, friend zone everybody. At the beginning, friend zone everybody. Because guess what? You will not be able to gauge whether that person is someone that can be your friend unless you friend zone people. And friend zone is not a bad thing, especially when you're looking for a long-term partner like your spouse. You do have to be friends. You have to be able to laugh. And a lot of times women, I can speak for women, we restrict our entire personality when we have the dating lens. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want him to see me like this way, and we restrict really our laugh.
That's
Like,
really good.
laugh from your gut. Like, show him how you actually laugh, or be yourself, your humor, the way that you think, and then if that person is comfortable, or you're comfortable with that person, with that young man, then let me tell you. And it happened. I know Ashley and Armando won't mind me saying that, but that's what happened with them. That's what happens with all
Mhm.
wonderful relationships, is
Yeah.
that they're friends for a long time, and then all of a sudden they realize, you know what?
I kind of like you.
I kind of like you, and
Yeah.
I like you. And then the Lord does His work. Like,
That's
you
right.
don't have to push. You don't have to be like wondering and stressing about whether they're going to ask you out, whether the feelings are mutual, all these questions that come when we try to move things in relationships. When we begin with friendship, and it's a solid friendship, you can see that that's a godly man or godly woman. The Lord will do His work, and He
Yeah.
will put in each of you that
Mhm.
that like spark and that desire and that stirring, and then it will move organically into the next
Mhm.
place. And yes, I do think if you are not, and there's nuances to being ready to get married, because some people are finishing school, but they know that they want the commitment. That's fine.
Mhm.
But like, if you've been together with a person for a year, 12 months, hanging out, talking, sharing life together, and you're
Meeting
like,
families.
and you can't comfortably say, this is a person that I want to commit to for the rest of my life, then move on, because don't waste that person's time. 12 months is more than enough time. I mean, unless you're hiding stuff.
No, what I would say is, and I know you're going to share, but I
I
think
think my story is good too.
Yeah.
because and I want Jess to share.
But I also, because it definitely it goes in line with what you guys are saying, because I don't want it to seem like, for what I'm about to say
Yeah.
is gonna be like
No.
But then what they said is nothing.
Yeah. What I
Yeah.
would say is, like, here's what I was saying before. It's like, I had a very legalistic mind
Yeah.
about that cutoff
Yeah.
time. Like, don't you not know? But then, like, started hearing different stories, and I'm like, there are certain people that are working on themselves even throughout the relationship, because it might be their first one. There might be some
Yeah.
things in
Tito's.
the person that Jess's story is a beautiful one, and there's things too that, like, Tito needed to know, and I wanted.
Okay.
She's going to share now,
So-
but
so-
really quick.
yeah.
What I would say is, like, I don't think there is, like, Bible law
No.
line,
No.
right? That
No.
doesn't
No.
exist.
No.
But what I would
Thank
say
God,
is,
because then we
Oh my God.
I got married in let's see. We started dating in April, got engaged in June or July,
Yeah. It
was
got
quick.
married in
God, it was
September.
quick.
Like, it was fast.
I was
Woof.
scared. But what I would
Wow.
say is that there should be, like, a sense of, like, here's the problem is, I think it's so sad when people date and date and date and date and they're together forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
What's
God
the purpose?
like, God forbid you don't end up at the end of this, or me, really, that's his plan, but you just wasted so
much
much
time.
time, friendships, opportunities, because you were glued to someone that you didn't belong to be
Yep.
glued with.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, okay, there's flexibility, but I also believe, like, dude, don't waste it. So
So yeah, that was a part of our business meeting when we were talking about our pros and cons of the relationship. Like, one, we both served in the same church, and we were afraid. I'd seen it happen where it's like, if this doesn't work out, then who leaves?
The friend splits.
Someone's got to leave.
Oh my gosh.
And we both loved our church, so we're like, oh no. And I had great friends around me, great supportive friends around me, who I consulted with them ahead of, like,
The
us
business
committing
meeting.
ahead of the business meeting. And part of it was, okay, look, admittedly at the time, like, the age difference was definitely a factor. But Tito's very mature for his age.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I was very transparent and clear and with Tito, and he was very, abundantly clear too, where we're like, hey, after a year and a half is what I had said. Let's, wherever we are in the relationship, we're going to have a DTR, define the relationship, and be like, hey,
DT. Define the future.
Define the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that now. And we're like, okay, how are we feeling? If anybody is not feeling it, we cut it.
I
out of
love
res-
that.
That's
You're
good.
clear. Like
out
that's
of
great.
but and it's not like a cold like, but I love you, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's like, because I respect you and care about
And
you,
love you. I just
I
don't.
And I
don't want to
love
waste
you.
your time.
I don't want to waste your time.
Yes.
And so we were abundantly clear about that. So yes, by the time we got married, we were together for 4 years. But I think
Well, there's also engagement.
yeah,
and all
yeah,
that
we're
stuff,
we're
and,
yeah we're yeah. So we were dating for 3, engaged for 1, and we got married the day after our 4-year anniversary, which is kind of cute.
Yay.
But we were always this one thing I pride, me and Tito, is our communication. We're just like abundantly clear with each other, kind of thing. We just
Super.
can't afford to mix words.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for the years that we did have together, because quite frankly, we didn't get out of that honeymoon season until after the first year. So we didn't start seeing
Ah.
attitudes and things like that until like after that first year.
Wow.
I think we had like our first fight after a year being together.
Wow.
Trust, we were that couple who was like, wow, we're doing so great. I don't understand why people
We're
fight.
so holy.
We're just so awesome. And then we got into our first fight over the dorkiest thing, because these
It
fights are
happens.
usually something dumb.
Yes.
And then you're married and you fight about toilet paper.
And then
over or under.
exactly, wash the dishes. Why can't you, fold the clothes when I tell you to, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, but yeah. So I think that's the abundant clearness. But like from the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yes, we were together. It was a long period of relationship, but we knew we were going to get married after year 1.
That's the difference.
Yeah. I would say too, like, and I'll ask you guys a question in this too. Like, so we're talking about friendships and time being together before you know. And I think like for our younger crowd, like we have a lot of like, especially I'm thinking like Doral, we have a young campus. There's a couple of young people at West Kendall too. And even here at PB, CG is a more mature crowd.
Yeah.
And Redland has a good mix of both.
Yeah.
But those like 18 through 20, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, they're still figuring out life, and I've seen people get together and they're like, they know they want to be together, which is awesome, but they're not ready financially. They're not ready in life, if that makes sense. And so they're like, oh, but we're going to get married in 4 or 5 years. And that is really scary for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
Number
Yeah.
2, I think about however holier you may be, and that's awesome, but temptation is a thing that affects everyone.
Yeah.
And the longer that you're together, the more you're tempted into fall and pass that line. And scripture is very clear, by the way. Scripture is very clear that it says to not see how close you can get to the line. It says to run away in the opposite direction. It doesn't say to test your strength
Yep.
against the line. It says just to run, flee from it. And so if you know that you're maybe financially not in a place like to date, or just and that's a big thing for you, don't do it. But I love her, but he's the one, but she's the one. Then I would say is like, well, then either your expectations on where you're gonna live and all that stuff. So because here's the thing, I've also seen some people, they don't get married because financially they're not where they want to be. And I'm like, hey bro, either you have way too high expectations, go
Yeah.
live in efficiency,
Yep.
go live in a duplex,
Yeah.
go live in something else, and enjoy the journey and be awesome and have one car. And I've seen couples that do it and and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But because at the end of the day, they know they're the right person for each other, and that they're going to choose to love each other, but they're not going to like, well, we're not going to, wait until we've graduated like 9-10 years down the
Or
road.
paid off
That's
my
cool.
student loans, dude.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have gotten married until I was in my 60s.
Yeah, no. I think it goes back to identity. Like you gotta know, and this is the thing, when you're strolling into wherever you are and you have those glasses on, you're always looking. Like, what is the purpose of you dating? Like,
Right.
there's a lot of young adults that are walking in and all they want is just they want a girlfriend or boyfriend. There is no future. There is no visual like future for them. They just want a relationship. They want someone to be with physically. They want someone to, fill in some emotional gap or whatever,
Yeah.
some need. And so it's pointless dating. There is so much pointless dating happening all like everywhere.
Which means there's so much hurt
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, because then of course those are the bad stories. Those are the really sad parts of their life that this guy a lot of time in church, this guy in church, this girl in church like hurt me bad because there was no point in what they were looking for. There was no future.
Yeah.
So it's like going back to identity, young
It was,
woman.
I liked you, you're attractive, let's go.
Yeah, let's
Rather
go. Like
than-
what's the point in that? So young woman, like young man, know who you are, know what you want. If you're not ready to
it's okay.
commit your life to someone, it is
It's
okay.
okay.
Enjoy your singleness.
Mhm.
Like some of the people that serve the most whole heart are the people that are single. They have the time, they have the energy, they have the flexibility. Okay, they don't have to be like concerned about another partner or whatever, or they're doing it, or they're together with someone, but they're both serving.
Yeah.
You know, so figure out what you want. It is totally okay to be a single young man or young woman, and okay with being single, serving, and being just chilling and having friendships. And then when you are ready, like for a young man, you're ready financially, you're ready, you have a certain maturity level, you know what you want in life. And for the young woman as well, you're going to exude that vibe or whatever you want to call it. And for the young women, you'll be able to identify that in a man, and a man will be able to identify that in a young woman, and
Yeah.
that was going to be a healthier relationship
Mhm.
than if you're just mindlessly dating. For what?
I got another question.
We'll start to wind down after this.
Sure. Don't worry, we can make this longer. The people in charge are in this episode.
Okay, cool. We're on this side.
But so with that, like I you're talking about, and I mean, I did exactly this in my singleness. Is like I didn't stay idle.
Yeah.
I was serving, I
Yeah.
was working, I was doing all these things, and I was the most available.
Yeah.
And so those are probably the most, like, not to say that my life isn't full right now being married, but my life was equally as full in my singleness.
Yes.
And so, but here's the thing. Do you think that might unconsciously communicate that maybe marriage is not, something that you want or desire?
To the wrong people. To the
Yeah,
wrong
I think
people.
I think it's like, so what you're saying, just to clarify, is
Yeah.
for the person that is so invested in the relationship with the Lord and
Mm-hmm.
serving, and their time is consumed with the things that they want it to be, the
Mhm.
right things,
Yep.
that might be giving off a message of like, I don't want to date. So
yeah,
don't
I'm
even
not
look at me.
interested. I'm not even. Yeah.
I think, going back to what Didi's saying, I think, man, and it's going back to what a lot of us were saying, like we wanted to find our spouses serving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, man, if you look at through a lens, I'm like, oh man, she's so busy, like her body language. I'm like, no, bro, she's just so concerned about worshiping Jesus than looking at your face.
Exactly.
Like it's okay. But I think, to me personally, and I'll be honest, a secure man and who I am and who the Lord has called me to be, going back, if I were to see Lauren, well, really quick, you guys know our story. We dated, we messed up, and we're like, man, this does not honor God. We broke up. I made more stupid choices. And then when we got back together, I didn't recognize Lauren when I saw her again. Because like when scripture says new creation and who she was and how she was spending her time, that girl started a youth group at her church. She became the leader and she was leading. And I was like, so when we got back together, when we started talking again, it was a cool time. I remember, but it was like, I'm like, hey, you want it? She's like, well, actually I have this or I have that. And it was all church stuff. And I was like, dang, I'm like, am I being shut down by her right now?
You're getting shut down because of Jesus.
It was, excuse me, I'm going to say it was equally sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just going to say it was equally sexy to know that, man, this girl loves the Lord.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I need that in my life.
Yes.
Kind of like, I want you.
Yep.
And so, yeah, she was busy with the things of Jesus, but I had the perspective to where I was like, I want you. Like,
But enter pursuit. Like when we're doing what we're supposed to do, like it opens up the pathway for the right man to pursue us.
Yeah.
Right? Because like what we said, you in your singleness, you found Tito, you guys were in the same ministry. Like something that I tell my girls a lot too is, you said it a long time ago. It's this illustration that we're supposed to be running, right? We're running
Yep.
our race. And
Ooh.
the person that's running with us, we shouldn't have to be looking back
that's right.
to pull them forward. Like we're
Mhm.
supposed to be running together.
That's
There
good.
are moments where we have to, like especially in marriage, like one of us is weaker, the other one helps. That's biblically okay.
Yeah.
But like if you're talking about people that are gonna date, you shouldn't have to be having to stop or slow down your pace because
That's
that
right.
homie or homegirl are way, way behind you.
Mhm.
You should be running this race with excellence, and then the person that is gonna come alongside you is gonna run with just the same as much excellence
Yep.
as you. And then at least for a woman, You want to be pursued by a man that is excellent in his walk with the Lord, in his life and what he's doing, because you are equally excellent in the way that
Yeah.
you're living your life. And so it goes, don't look for somebody, or don't waste your time like slowing down your pace
Yeah.
in all sense for somebody that just cannot catch up to you. Like you got to be, and that's going to cause problems later on in marriage. Like if your man cannot catch up with you and be at your level, then it's going to be tough because you're going to be frustrated.
And the other thing I would say is too, who are we trying to impress?
Mm-hmm.
Like if let's say you're a young lady and you're so in love with the Lord and you're serving God, and you're out there and you're just passionate about who He is, about Christ and all this stuff. Is it more important to change how you're coming off so that a guy can find you more attractive, or are you really concerned with honoring the Lord with your life? Because I really believe if you're doing what God has called you to do, living a life of obedience,
the Lord will do it.
The Lord will do it, and the Lord will honor your obedience.
Yep.
And the Lord, you are attracting the right person, rather than, like I want a person that seems more available, or like it's like who you're trying to attract.
That's
right?
a person who's got a chip on their shoulder. That's a person that has already insecurities that you don't want to have to deal with at that point. Let them figure that out. If a person is insecure, like I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, if a man is insecure about your commitment to the Lord and how you spend your time, and if you're doing things to honor Him, like you do not want to get into that web, because you are going to have to counsel and therapy him into like justifying your decisions. And if you're living a life that is honoring God, if you're living in obedience, you shouldn't have to justify your obedience to the Lord.
Good.
So leave him be, because he's probably not the person that is going to be, or leave her be, because she or he are not at the standard or at the pace that you're at. Like you don't need to slow that down. Don't slow down your obedience for the Lord, to appease some person that you want to impress.
That's just miserable. Like imagine like something that you are passionate about, that you positively love, serving God, and someone's making you feel bad about it.
Or even like you have to split your time, because again, if you're together, if you find them serving, or if you find them in the same atmosphere that you are in, you all just do it together. Like there isn't this concern about like spending too much time here, spending too much time there. Yeah, you have to rearrange time to spend time together or whatever. But you
have to put work into it.
Yes, of course. But you are doing the important things together, which really is a reflection on what your marriage is supposed to look like. Serving together, Yeah,
so one of the things that you ladies mentioned too, so it's talking about like, let's say going back to Jess's question, like, it's almost like, is that person approachable, right? Like, are they approachable because of whatever? So we answered that. But speaking about approach, because I do get this a lot. I'm going to just flat out, can girls or should girls initiate in a relationship? Like, should they initiate, like if there's a guy?
It's like rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You got to do it.
I think
you lost.
No, I'm like, yeah, you do it. No, look, Tito asked me out. And then not to mention, now for me, I think it's a little bit more complex too, because there was also like personal things regarding my own personal testimony that I had to definitely like take that sort of, I had to rework my brain into like who God created me to be, and my role as a woman. And so, but I always kind of held that where just very you can call it traditional, where the guy does the asking, the guy does the pursuing, but I mean it's also biblical. And I also would even go further in saying that it's really a reflection. If anything is going to like give you any sort of idea of a future with this young man, I'm going to speak from the women's perspective, this young man, then if he's so passive and can't like do the pursuing, how much more so can you expect that man to lead your family when you guys are married? If you're already seeing that already out the gate because he won't pursue you and he won't take that sort of initiative and he's passive and things like that, don't be surprised if later on in the relationship, like he's proven to be, very lackluster in their leadership.
Now, really quick before, because something that I love that Jonah, she's in this room right now, but she did mention, and I thought it was so awesome. There is a difference between initiating
Mhm.
and pursuing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Like the
Yeah.
actual, like, I'm a like if
Yeah.
a girl's there pursuing, I'll be like, girl, settle down. kind
Calm
of thing,
down.
Yeah.
you know?
Calm down.
But like, so Didi, what's that difference? Like, how do you feel
Yes.
about women initiating
I think
versus pursuing?
versus pursuing. Okay, so for just in our story, Andy pursued me, like, and he'll tell you, like, she was hard work. Like, it was hard because I didn't make it just so simple for him. And I'm not saying that I was closed off. I'm just saying that, like, I wasn't like, oh yeah, here I am for the taking. Like, I made myself.
Damsel in distress.
Yeah, no, I was not no damsel in distress. I just was like, I'm interested, but I'm cautious.
Yes.
Also, I had my daughter. It was different. I was in a different stage of life. I had
Sure.
a lot on the line, and so I always told the Lord, like, whoever it is, like, I will be very careful,
Mhm.
because it was not just the man that's leading me, that's leading my daughter as well.
Yep.
And so I did make myself available in the sense that, yes, I accepted, or yes, I opened up to conversation, and I made myself available to
Yes.
open up the conversation. So you can, even if you initiate a conversation with a young man as a woman, you can initiate and let
Mhm.
him know that you are open, that you are interested, that you are single, because sometimes they just need that, like, oh, maybe they weren't sure. But the pursuing has to be left to the man.
Yes.
Because like Ali Beth
Yes.
Stuckey says, I listened to her podcast called Relatable. Super, super good. She always says, if a man wanted to, he would. Period. End of the story. If he wanted to, he would.
Yeah.
If he wanted to ask for your number, he would. If he wanted to know if you were single, he would. If he was interested, he would make the move. If he wanted to, he would.
Yeah.
Because that is part of like a man's personality.
Yeah.
You guys are the movers and shakers. You guys go get it if you want it. But if he wanted to, if he wanted you, young lady, if he wanted you, he would pursue you. He would. And if he doesn't want to, if he wants to like hang back and wait for the woman to pursue him, then that's the woman he's looking for, and that's not you. Okay,
Yeah.
unless it is you and you are the one that always wants to be. But let me tell you, that will translate into your marriage.
Yep.
And that's not going to be the marriage that the Lord has designed. Like
Mhm.
biblically, he didn't design you to be that.
Yep.
He designed you to be his helper. He designed you to be, all kinds of other things.
We see Ruth initiating. With,
Yeah,
with
she
a
did
Boaz.
initiate.
She
Yeah,
initiated.
she kind of like allowed those pieces to fall into place, and she walked in obedience. There's obedience there.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
She
right.
walked
Yeah.
in obedience, and then she allowed him to make that move and the pursuit and all all the rest of the things. But all that translates into marriage later
Yeah.
on. Like, what do you want your marriage? You want to have to be doing like all the heavy lifting?
Yeah.
No, we were not created for that. I was not created for that.
Nope.
My husband does the heavy lifting because that's how God created him to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's beautiful to know that there's roles and there's also ways that we have been designed
Thank
by
God.
and
Mhm.
that there's purpose behind that. And one of the things that we're just battling as young adults and as a ministry is this culture is just pushing in the opposite direction of what the Word of God says, of how we were created and designed to be. And so ultimately, young adults, what we want to encourage you to is like, man, I love that you're tuning into this podcast and that you're getting information and you're getting advice and counsel from my sisters here on the couch, and that you come on the weekend and you're coming and you're getting counsel from the Word of God, but like from a pastor, but like put your nose in the book and get your counsel from the Word of
Yes.
God. Be guided by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is never going to lead you astray, and really learn what it is to distinct. What is my flesh saying? What is my spirit saying? And so young adults, I guess, like to kind of wrap up our relationship kind of podcast. This is part 2. We've talked about in this series who to date, who not to date. And the reality is don't be unequally yoked. We can talk about that. That can be a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other episode.
But the reality is, I always tell you, if they're not leading you to Jesus, they're going to lead you away.
Mhm.
There's zero in between. And then have the right people around you that while you're dating, that they're whispering the right things into your ear.
and before you're dating, while you're
Yeah.
in your season of waiting.
Yep.
Yeah. Like the friends that you have around you that can also sift through
Yeah.
all the duds. Like that's important, ladies and gentlemen. Like the women that you have around you and the men that you have around you, your friends that can see things that you can't, that are not, don't suffer from your blind spots. Like
Yeah.
godly young men and women. Like
Yeah.
if you go to counsel to the world will always tell you get in, get it. And it's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
The ladies and the young men that you have, your friends, your godly friends, are going to be like, remember you said in this, in this conversation that this is what you're looking for, like in a
Right.
woman. Remember, I don't
good.
know if she's that. They can see the things that sometimes we can't when we're blinded by physical attraction or by like just desperation. And
Yeah.
so those will guard you, guard your heart and take care of your blind spots.
That's good.
And then they will also help you in dating, in the dating process, in that dating season, to keep you accountable.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, for being here. Thank you for having this conversation,
that's
for
fun.
sharing your stories I had no idea about. And young adults, thank you for tuning in so much, man. We really want to encourage, have the right people around you in every season of life. Have the right people. Make sure that you're building that community, having those right friends. And if you want to know how to do that, man, go back and tune into our messages that we have online available for you. We love you. We're here to serve you. And may the Lord bless you. See you next time.
Bye.